This is the Christmas Movie Screenwriter Podcast, episode number 2. This is your host, Karen McCann, and welcome to another episode of the Christmas Movie Screenwriter Podcast. This is a podcast about writing, producing, and selling Christmas movies. I'm also launching a membership website to connect writers and producers of heartwarming Christmas movies worldwide. You can sign up at christmasmoviescreenwriter.com. Our guest today is author and screenwriter Jennifer Snow. She discusses networking opportunities, how to make your Christmas script more original, and how some buyers are now keen to see their Christmas movie with a bit of action in the mix. Here is the main segment. Today's guest is Jennifer Snow. Jennifer Snow is a USA Today best-selling author and screenwriter of over 40 novels and 20 screenplays, writing romantic comedies and thrillers for Harlequin, Grand Central, Entangled, Penguin Random House, and Thomas & Mercer. Her books have won awards such as the Bookseller's Best Award and have been translated into many foreign languages, as well as optioned for film. Her produced credits include 14 Love Letters on Hallmark, Christmas Lucky Charm on Up TV, Mistletoe and Molly on Up TV, and she has 8 TV MOWs airing on various networks in 2023, including Christmas in Maple Hills, Sworn Justice, and Christmas Time Capsule. Formerly an Edmonton Public Library Spotlight author and Audrey's Book Writer-in-Residence, Jennifer enjoys offering writing workshops and mentoring aspiring writers. Originally from Canada, she now resides in Spain. More information can be found on her website at www.jennifersnowauthor.com. So, Jennifer, thank you for coming on the podcast today.
Thank you for having me. It was great that you reached out.
Yes. Well, I told the audience a little bit about you, but why don't you take a minute and tell us about yourself and your work?
Okay. Well, the question I'm always asked is whether or not Snow is my real name or if it's a pen name.
That's great.
It is actually my real name. So I guess I got lucky on that account. It looks really great on the cover of Christmas romance novels. So,
of course.
So I've been lucky there. I always knew I wanted to write. I started writing when I was really young, like 5, 6 years old. I would write little stories. And then I started writing and submitting to publishers when I was 15.
Wow.
But it took a long time, 14 years of writing and rejections and trying to do everything other than writing to finally get that first kind of call that my books were going to be published from Victoria Curran at Harlequin. So that was really special. And then things just kind of took off from there. I was lucky enough to be able to be a career writer for the last 12, 13 years now.
Wow.
Yeah. So getting to do what I love is just, it's fantastic and kind of, allowed me to go on this adventure, moving to Spain and being able to, work remotely from here. So, yeah.
Wow. That's exciting. It's sort of like, it's sort of romantic, it's sort of like Ernest Hemingway. That's when I read your bio, I'm like, wow, that sounds fantastic. Now, you talked about your background in the novel aspect, but can you share your journey of breaking into the industry as a screenwriter of Christmas movies? What steps did you take to establish yourself in this genre?
Well, it was 2017. I had a break in my publishing deadline schedule, and I had always wanted to write screenplays, but it was a big enough dream to want to write books. So the film industry seemed, very elusive for someone living in Canada. I'm from a small town in St. John's, Newfoundland, and then I was living in Alberta, so very far removed from the film industry. So, but I had a break in my schedule, and I thought, I really wanted to do it, and I really wanted to try. So I took one of my older holiday rom-com novellas, and I thought I would just try adapting it to see if I could do it.
Okay.
I read a bunch of scripts. I read a bunch of books on screenwriting. I took a bunch of master classes online and just kind of launched in and thought, if it works, it works. And so I finished the first adaptation in about a week while my son was at summer camp. And then I decided, okay, well, what do I do with it from here? So I started reaching out online on some online platforms and things like that. And then I saw that there was a conference in Santa Monica that year, it's every year, called AFM, American Film Market. And I thought, why not go and see, if I can kind of sell this thing and talk to some producers and get that face-to-face time. So I signed up for the conference, and they gave me access to the networking site prior to the conference, where I was able to line up a bunch of appointments with producers who were going to be attending that, made the kind of movies that I wanted to write. And really just kind of lucked into finding the right people to talk to that week, and ended up selling the first movie.
Wow.
So yeah, it was definitely unexpected and kind of unreal to come home knowing that, my first movie was optioned. And
Wow.
yeah, it took a couple of years to kind of get it to the point where, it was able to get made, but it came out in 2021 as Mistletoe and Molly. So it was based on an older novella. So, I really recommend that authors start there, like if they want to break into screenwriting, because they have the material already there. So it definitely takes away some of the pressure of writing a script when the plot's there, the characters are there, your dialogue is there. I personally find adaptations a little easier. So it's definitely what I recommend to a lot of aspiring screenwriters. If they have that author base or they have pieces of writing that they can adapt, it's a great place to start. So
would you suggest the opposite? Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, no, go ahead.
Would you suggest the opposite, whereas if a screenwriter already has a script, adapt it to a novella?
Yeah, absolutely. I've actually done that as well. I have a couple of scripts that were scripts, and then I decided, novelizing them is a really good idea, especially with Hollywood's obsession with IP. Right. So I have done the reverse as well. I've taken a script and turned it into a book. And then ultimately sold it back as a movie. So you could definitely go back and forth. I love repurposing material. If you can use the same stories and not have to try to come up with new stuff all the time, it's a fantastic thing. So
you could even do like a fiction podcast, maybe.
That would be fun.
There's a lot of there's a lot of IP you could think of. Okay, now what specific elements do you think are crucial to include in a successful Christmas movie screenplay?
Well, I think definitely the festive atmosphere and those, holiday activities that are so familiar to everyone, the sights and the sounds and the music, the soundtrack on these movies are just absolutely fantastic and really kind of bring the spirit. I think traditions, featuring traditions and that are familiar to a lot of viewers, or even new ones. I know for our family, the white elephant gift exchange is really popular, and I've seen that featured in a lot of movies. But my family, we actually like the saran wrap ball, which is a little less familiar, where you wrap a bunch of gifts in saran wrap, in layers and layers of saran wrap, and someone's rolling a dice, and you have to try to use oven mitts to unwrap as much saran wrap as you can before the next person rolls a 6 or a 1 or whatever you've decided on, and then you have to hand the ball off. So it's about getting as many gifts out of the saran wrap ball as you can. I mean, I've spent hours wrapping, these massive saran wrap balls to do it. So I like featuring things that my family does in movies as well. Just kind of give viewers a different tradition they might like to try. And I think, just the different tropes and the themes, of hope and redemption and faith and generosity. I always like to incorporate a tearjerker moment. I love my fun, humorous movies, but I always think there needs to be at least one moment that kind of brings a tear to viewers' eyes, a heartwarming element. Okay. My husband is always my judge on whether or not I've accomplished that, because he's not emotional and he's not a crier. So if he can tear out at a moment, it's perfect. I know I've hit that mark. So
yeah. Good. Now, how do you approach creating memorable characters within the Christmas movie formula? And I guess we could say there is a formula.
Yeah, there definitely is. I mean, different networks have different beats and act structures that they like to follow, but typically it's the same. Act 1, is the setup, and then you've got all the acts in the middle with the lead ups and the twists and turns at the end of every commercial break, and then the wrap up at the end with the happily ever after and the Christmas moments. So there's definitely a formula, but and there has been a lot of these movies, and every year there's a lot of movies coming out. I think for me, and I've always kind of like to approach my writing this way. I like characters that are real and relatable and flawed, but I like to kind of spin them on their head a little bit. Like some of my favorite characters are, like when I write a female mechanic or, women doing things that aren't typical of, what traditional women roles used to be. Now a female mechanic's not a big deal, but when I first started writing, it was a bit of a big deal. And different things like that. Like one of the movies I have coming up this year, there's a male lead who's helping out around this Amish farm. And, the suggestion was that he was helping out at the farm and doing some, farm work and helping out. But I kind of wanted to spin him so that he wasn't actually all that handy. I thought it was a more fun way to play with his character. So that's kind of what I try to do with these characters, is to take what's kind of cliched and predictable and maybe spin it a little so it's unexpected to viewers.
Well, that's a smart idea. Good. Now, there's a big talk about the future of AI. Do you think AI will change the way Christmas movies are written or made? If so, how?
I didn't think I had a lot to say on the AI thing, but then as I started thinking about it more and more over the last few weeks, I have a lot to say, but I won't go into a lot. I guess the short answer is I think it will change the industry, because I think a lot of producers are already trying to figure out a way to use it to get these movies faster and quicker and maybe cheaper. It's not something I personally feel comfortable using, but again, ask me in 2 years and my opinion may have changed. If it comes down to walking away from a career I love or jumping on board, the way that the world has changed, that's something I'll have to deal with when I get there. But as of right now, I don't plan to use AI. I don't use AI. I'm probably one of the least technology savvy people in the world. I probably held on to my flip phone longer than anyone else on the planet. So I'm not really into it anyway. But I think the biggest problem I have with it is besides legalities and plagiarism and all those issues, but just the biggest part of I like to sit with my characters and my plot for a little while. And I guess if the premise is that they would feed information into AI, chat GPT or another system, and then hand writers a draft that then they need to make shine, the expectation is going to be that they do it quicker and you're going to have less time with that project as well. And these turnarounds for the movies are usually 2 to 3 weeks. Like I've written one in 10 days. And so I really do need that time with the characters. I mean, I'm constantly thinking about it. I'm deep diving into this movie when it's that project's time to, have my attention. And I do need that time. My subconscious needs that time to be with the characters and to write the movie all the wrong ways before I can write it the right way. So I just feel that in a shortened time schedule, which is what I feel like they're going to give writers if they have a draft done by AI, you don't really have that time to sit with it. And that first draft, that messy draft, is part of my process. So taking that away from me, I think will hinder what comes out at the end. I don't know, maybe other writers will feel like it's, a helpful tool in that they don't need to do that first messy draft, and then they can spend the time on the creative elements and fine-tuning the dialogue and having more time with that. But I think that creative process and that collaboration really starts at those first developmental calls with your producer as well, especially if it's a new relationship. And I feel like if we don't have that, things are going to get lost. But I'm attending a bunch of seminars on this topic at MIPCOM in October this year. So maybe 3 months from now, I would have a totally different idea and take on the whole issue. But right now, it's not something I want to use, and I hope I'm not asked to. That's kind of the bottom line for me right now.
I want to just touch on something you mentioned a minute ago. Sometimes when you're hired for a script, the producer will give you, did you say 2 weeks to write a script? 10 days? How much time?
Yeah, typically for these movies, from what I experience and what other screenwriters I know, it's usually about a 3-week turnaround for the scripts. And sometimes it's quicker depending on the time frame. As we get later into the year, and as production networks are greenlighting Christmas movies still late into the year, the time frame kind of shrinks a tiny bit. So so sometimes we jump the stages of treatments. I like to have a week to do a treatment and then 3 weeks to write a script. That's ideal, but it's not always how it works. So typically it's more about 2 to 3 week turnaround time for a movie project. So for me.
From like idea to finished first draft is 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Holy
Yeah.
cow! Wow, you're a fast writer.
It's quick. And with books, I usually have at least a few months. So yeah, my subconscious really had to kind of speed up a little bit when I started writing screenplays, because it's like we can't take a month, to develop this character. It needs to happen within like 3 days. So it's all consuming. I have to say, I'm showering, I'm doing dishes, I'm driving, and it's constantly on my mind. My husband and son are constantly texting me stuff because I'll be driving and I'll think of something and I'm like, text me these words. So it triggers something in my memory. So it's a family affair.
Wow. Yeah. That's great. That's good to know. It's good to know, the reality that, if writers want to get into this space, they better write fast. Now,
it's quick.
Are there any current shifts in audience preferences that screenwriters should be aware of?
Yeah, well, one great shift is all the embracing of diversity that the networks have seemed to be doing in the last few years. Just viewers have wanted it for a long time, and networks are embracing it. And I just think that's been fantastic. That definitely seeing a lot more different lifestyles and different values and different things on screen that wasn't there even a few years ago. On another level, I think viewers are also embracing the other elements to these movies. Before, it was really all about the central romance plot. I think what really kind of showed the value of this was Lori Wilde. She's a New York Times bestselling author of the Wedding Veil series that Hallmark adapted recently. And they did so well. And I think part of that was because of the strong female friendship angle and plotline that ran through the trilogy of movies. It wasn't just about the romance. It was that really strong female friendship thread that went through. And I'm finding that's a huge shift. A lot of the times when I'm talking to producers now and talking to networks about what they want, they vocalize that they want those secondary stories and those secondary relationships to be just as strong as that romantic arc. So I think viewers are definitely loving that, that strong female friendship and characters that have other things going on in their lives besides just the romantic arc. So that's what I'm finding, is having to kind of layer those plots with the B and C plots to make the story richer. So,
when I watch a lot of these Christmas movies, you've got the typical beats, but I don't see a lot of villains. I don't see like a real quote antagonist.
Yes. Yeah. There's that is definitely something that I think is still lacking. I mean, even one of my movies that's coming out this Christmas Time Capsule. I mean, you have an ex-girlfriend, or current girlfriend, who obviously is not the lead, in it. And even the one I had last year, Christmas Lucky Charms, there's an ex in it. But these people are still very likable. They're still very sweet. The conflict tends to be a little less dramatic and a bit more mild. So yeah, I think you're right. There isn't that villain angle. I think if you were to watch the movies that the Christmas movies on Ion or BET, so Sworn Justice, the one I wrote with Brainpower this year, is going to be releasing on BET this year, and that one is very it's an action romance, and so there is a real villain and there is action and that kind of thing. So different networks allow it, but if you're thinking Hallmark and GAC and Up TV, typically the villains are not all that dark.
Is Sworn Justice a Christmas movie?
It is. It is. Yes.
Okay. I'm glad to hear it, because I love action. And so I can't get that out of my blood. So I'm like, writing Christmas movies is new to me. And as I mentioned before we started recording, I was in Asia for a long time. So I'm back in the, Hong Kong action genre. So moving into Christmas movies, it's like, well, where's the bad guy? Right. But I'm glad to hear. I'm definitely going to watch soon. Is it out? The Sworn Justice, is that out now?
It'll be out this Christmas
Oh, Christmas.
on
Okay.
BET, and it's Sworn Justice. Sworn Justice. It's the first movie called Taken Before Christmas, and so yeah, a lot of action, a lot
Wow.
of heat, a lot more heat than a lot of these movies have. So I'm not sure what the rating is, but it's definitely not a sweet G movie. But
A lot of what did you say? A lot of
uh, I'm not sure what the rating is, but
no,
it's definitely
I'm heat. What you said heat or a lot of what?
heat. Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
heat.
There's a lot of heat.
Okay.
Yeah, a lot more than just a little bit of kissing going
Oh,
along in
okay.
between. So yeah,
I'm
it's
a little
fantastic.
slow. I'm a little
Yeah,
slow.
no, it was definitely different. It was definitely a different project. Super fun to
Okay.
work on something a little heavier than the typical sweet romances. But yeah, so I'm very excited about it. It's got a terrific cast and an amazing director. So really looking forward to seeing how it turns out.
Yeah, me too. Because Sworn Justice, you wouldn't even think that that was a Christmas movie, but wow, it sounds great. So I'm
Yeah.
very encouraged. You sort of answered my next question about how do you balance meeting audience expectations while also delivering fresh and original stories. Do you think you're gonna that's the question, but also I'm curious if you're gonna kind of lean into that action element and add that to more of your future Christmas scripts.
I'd love to. A lot of my passion projects, it's really nice. I have the leeway to kind of do what I want to do with them. And then, if I sell it to a network who would like some changes to meet what their viewers' expectations are, I can tweak at that point. A lot of what I do is made to order or work for hire projects where, the production companies will come to me because the network is looking for a particular project. And that was kind of what Sworn Justice was. And so it was exciting that a network wanted something with action in it. So I would love to do more of those, and I think I would love to do a passion project on my own, a spec script that I could potentially sell. It's just whether or not um, there's a home for it. It's a little trickier. I love that BET is doing it. Like I said, Ion does it as well. They have a bunch of mysteries and Christmas kind of crime movies that they do with a romantic B plot. So there's a few networks that are doing it. So I think I would love to continue adding those
Good.
elements to what I'm doing. Yeah, for sure.
And then I gotta assume that those Christmas crime movies have an antagonist.
Yes. Oh,
Oh,
yes.
okay, good. Yay. Okay, there's hope for me yet.
Yes, yes. And like I said, when Justice has a fairly dark plot line, it's definitely not a G movie. So
Okay, good.
I really hope you enjoy it. I think it's going to
Yeah.
be really
Well,
fun.
well, I think you could expand the audience more because some of these I love Christmas movies. I just discovered them like a year ago. I mean, I'm kind of late in the game, but it's to me. I think there would be more people watching them if you have that action element. But anyway, that I digress. Um, so let's ask you about your writing process when you're writing a script. Well, let me go back a minute. How would you suggest screenwriters expand their network of producers and networking? Give examples, competitions, or utilizing online platforms. You did mention the AFM and MIPCOM.
Mhm.
Is that those? Would you, have you done both of those?
I have. I hugely recommend like conferences and film markets if you can do it. I know it's not feasible and possible for people to attend these conferences a lot of the time, but I honestly feel like there's nothing that beats a face-to-face meeting in
Right.
these environments. Just the inspiration of being around a bunch of like-minded people, the energy from in these conferences is phenomenal, and you always leave inspired, and you meet such great people, even people that may not be able to help you with your career or buy your products that you're selling or any of that, but even just talking to like-minded people and learning more about the industry and how it all works, you just walk away from it having so much more knowledge and skills. And I really think it's a great way to meet producers. And if you can go with a pitch deck of different projects that you're selling, even just log lines and one pagers of your ideas, and have those face-to-face meetings with the producers that are making the movies that you want to write, it's so valuable. That MIPCOM last year for me basically just kind of launched everything. I had three movies prior to MIPCOM last year, and I had a couple of movies being pitched to networks, but attending MIPCOM in October of last year really just launched my career. I had a binder of one-pagers, and I met with, I think, 7 or 8 different production companies that make the Christmas movies. And by the time I left MIPCOM, I had sold those 8 projects. So
wow.
Yeah, it was a really valuable experience to go. So I highly recommend all of those conferences and film markets and things like that if you can. If you can't, the online networking platforms work as well. It's a little bit pay to play. There's sites like Greenlight My Movie and Virtual Pitch Fest, where you can pitch directly to production companies and producers and directors. The nice thing about those platforms is that they guarantee a response, so you're not just emailing out into the void.
Right. Good.
But you do have to pay to have your stuff, in front of those people. And I have had, I've made contacts through those earlier in my career as well, which was great. And also IMDb. If you can get a membership to IMDb Pro, all the information is there for all the companies. So, I mean, if you Google Christmas romance movies and you see the production companies that are making those movies, their contact information is there. And while they don't take pitches, unsolicited pitches, if you are going to be attending a conference, you could reach out and say, hey, I'm going to be at AFM or I'm going to be at MIPCOM. Would you like to meet? And they'll respond to that. Or you could just send out a query saying, are you open to queries? And you might not get an answer you could send out 100 emails and maybe only get 4 answers, but at least that's 4 answers and 4 doors open. So there are ways to get in front of people. It's just trying to be a little creative, I guess.
Right. Now, you mentioned a one-pager. For the audience out there who don't know what that is, can you explain what a one-pager is?
Yeah. It's literally just one page of your logline and then a short synopsis that just kind of encapsulates the whole plot of your movie. Just something catchy and fun. If it's a Christmas holiday rom-com, make sure you mention that it's Christmas time, that it's here's the romantic arc. These are the main characters. Here's the main setup, and here's how it resolves. And that's it. And so even if you don't have a fully fleshed out idea, if you could just have one pagers of different concepts, because a lot of the time the producers and the developmental execs don't really want you to have a finished product either. It'd be great to have sample scripts completed to show your writing skills and your ability, but a lot of the time they won't buy the script you have ready. They will want other ideas that you have, or they'll have ideas for you. And then it's about fleshing it out together and developing that and going through those stages with the network and what they want to see as well. So it's great to have 2 or 3 spec scripts to showcase your writing talents and what you can do. But a lot of the time you'll end up using those as samples. So.
Okay. So if you, let's say you go to one of these conferences with 5 scripts, are you literally handing 5 pieces of paper out to the producer?
Usually we'll just sit there and go through, they'll quickly read the log line, and they know if they're at AFM and MIPCOM and stuff, they've been meeting with networks prior, as well. So they kind of know what, like, for example, Up TV is looking for this holiday season. And so they could quickly look through the log lines I have, just a one line about what my concept is. And if they see, I've got a baking one, but, nobody wants baking this year because it's been done, they'll skip over it and then they'll go to something different. And so if they see something that's an action rom-com and, somebody that they met with earlier that day had said, we're looking for action rom-coms, then they'll attach themselves to that and say, hey, let's talk about this project. So they're very quick. They're very quick to flick through, and they know what they're looking for very fast. So, and they'll tell you. And if you don't have anything they're looking for, they'll say, hey, what about this? Do you think you could do this? So it's good.
Is there a big difference between AFM and MIPCOM?
AFM has a lot more screenwriters and creatives and indie filmmakers, I think, in my experience, just from going before, just because I think maybe because of its location being in California, it's more accessible to a lot more people, whereas MIPCOM being in France is a little trickier to get to. So it's more industry execs and producers looking to sell their movie slates to networks. Which actually worked really well in my favor as a screenwriter, because there wasn't many screenwriters there last year. So I'm probably sharing the secret of mine right now, but if you can get your butt to Cannes, it's there's not
Yeah.
many of us there, so
And
you can kind of get the audience that you're looking for.
when you're in MIPCOM, is it just I don't want to say just, but for these meetings with the producers, you have a script, but do you also need an actor attached or anything, or is it just the script?
Just the script. I find if you're selling big budget projects, and a lot of agents and managers like to package things with a director attached or talent attached. And I think when you're going for the bigger budget stuff, that's really helpful, and it really works to your benefit. For the TV movie space, we're dealing with budgets that are like 500,000 to 2 million. So, and I mean, Hallmark goes a little bit higher, I guess, at times from what I've heard, but that's typically what you're playing with. And so I've heard that attaching talent can sometimes almost be a detriment because you could price yourself out. If a network really likes the project with a star attached, but then when the negotiations happen and that actor is demanding a lot more money than what's in the budget to work with, it could actually kind of hinder the project. So for the TV movie space, with a lot of the networks, I've been advised anyway to just go with the script and let the producers figure out casting as they move forward.
Okay. Now you sort of touched on budgets, which leads me to my next question. What budget range or number of locations or number of speaking parts do you aim for when writing a Christmas script?
I've written everything from, well, my budget range usually is about 500,000 to about 2 million from what I've written so far. And I think I've done everything from a movie with 3 locations and 5 characters, very contained, to, maybe 10 locations, 9 or 10 locations and 9, 10 main speaking role characters. That's pretty typical for some of the TV series stuff that I've been working on, and movie franchise stuff. You can add a few more characters because you're building up that series. So, there's a few other plot threads throughout, but that's typically where it ends up. I think the biggest thing is really just keeping in mind production schedules when you're writing the characters, because you don't want to have a secondary character who ends up in 6 different locations, because then they'll be on set for maybe 6 days filming, and that's not usually feasible. So I think it's just after you do your first draft and you write the movie the way you want to write it and in the fun, great way that it is, but then doing a pass where you're keeping an eye to production and knowing, okay, well, if I've got the confidant in her house and maybe at the office, that's really, enough places to have her, maybe have her, in one other location, but keep it fairly confined. And then the, same thing goes with keeping in mind exterior shots and night shoots take longer to film. They're a little harder to film. They're a little trickier to get, the city to agree to shut down a street if you need a street shut down for a night, those kind of things. So I think keeping in mind the budget goes like far beyond just how many characters and locations you have, but more just, keeping in mind all of those things. Same thing with like the fact that these movies are filmed throughout the year. So if you have a Christmas movie filmed in July, good luck finding real snow. So a scene that seems like it's an easy one, like to me, I'm like, oh, I'll just have a snowball fight. But when it comes to produce it, it's a lot easier to have snow blankets on the ground than it is to actually have snow being launched through the air. So then sometimes you have to think on your feet and rewrite those scenes. So just keeping that in mind, things that you don't really think would be an issue are an issue once it goes to camera. So, internal scenes are your friend.
When it goes to shoot, do you need to be on the set?
I haven't been. No, since COVID, a lot of the movie sets and stuff have been pretty scarce about having too many people. There, like I know even up until recently, people were still wearing masks, and even last year they were still doing COVID tests and stuff on set. So having anyone there that doesn't need to be there was kind of a no. And for these franchise TV movies, I don't really need to be there. If they need me to do a rewrite on of a scene or something, they can reach out. But a lot of the times it ends up coming down to the director and the production team on the ground, who kind of just make those changes on the fly. So, so if I'm lucky, I get input. Other times I don't. And then the scene is just as much of a surprise to me as it is
Oh.
to everyone else.
Or they'll say, stand by the phone. Oh,
Yes.
great.
Yes.
We have a time difference. So
Yeah.
what advice would you give to your younger self, knowing what you
Oh,
know now?
I think maybe don't try so hard to look for detours off the path that I know is the right one.
Okay.
I tried everything to not be a writer. I'll be honest. I'm halfway through a PhD in neuroscience. I've had
Wow.
a bajillion different careers. I'm only 42, and I think I've lived a lifetime of about 10 different people, just trying to avoid it. And then I had my son, and I was on maternity leave, and I had some time, and I thought, I keep denying what I truly want to do, and I have been active in writing and pitching, books for years, and then I just kind of stopped and let everything else kind of take over. And so and then so in that moment I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna try to write a book and see if I can get it published, and if I can, then I just gotta just go with it and give in to what I know I've always wanted to do. So I think I would tell myself to stop wasting time and just get there faster.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's good advice. That's good advice. Now, to wrap up, would you like to, how can our audience keep track of your work? Would you like to share any website links or social media details, whatever you are comfortable sharing?
Yeah, for sure. The easiest thing is my website for sure, jennifersnowauthor.com. That's where I post about all my books and all the movies that are going to be releasing. So all the information's there, and there's a contact form, and anyone is welcome to email me anytime at jennifersnowauthor.com if they have questions about screenwriting. I love talking about screenwriting and helping other people. And if I can, make connections for other screenwriters, I'm more than happy to do it. So feel free to reach out anytime through there. I am on Instagram and Facebook and Twitter and a bunch of other places. I'm not super active on social media. I don't do TikTok. I'm holding out on that. I am not joining TikTok. But yeah, if you can find me online, you probably have a better luck finding me than I probably have trying to find myself. So my website and IMDb is probably the best places to keep up with what I'm actually doing from a professional standpoint. And my email, I have a newsletter. So if you go to my website, you can sign up for my newsletter. I like to communicate my newsletter. So
so at the website, we can get your newsletter.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Definitely. I'll definitely get on that after this. Well, Jennifer, thanks for sharing all your great expertise and your knowledge. And thank you for coming on the Christmas Movie Screenwriter podcast today.
It's been so fun. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, and we'll talk soon. I definitely want to know when that Sworn Justice is coming out. I'll put that in the show notes.
Okay. Sounds good.
Thanks, Jennifer.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. And now for my key points. Today I have 6. Number 1, networking opportunities. Jennifer mentioned she had great success at the AFM, the American Film Market. The AFM has a visitor portal where you can set up meetings and communicate with other attendees and exhibitors. This may be better than just emailing people closer to the market. You can start discussions and network inside the AFM attendee platform. Number 2, making your Christmas script heartfelt. Add a tearjerker moment. Jennifer indicated that having a tearjerker moment gives your script more heart, which will resonate with viewers. Number 3, be original. Not all Christmas movie heroines need the same stereotypical job that we've seen done over and over. These lead role occupations we've seen many times, and that includes pastry chef, interior designer, small-town bookshop owner, architect, nondescript workaholic, usually working for the advertising industry. Give your lead character a unique job, like Jennifer did, such as in one of her scripts, the lead woman is an auto mechanic. It will make your script stand out. Number 4, write fast. When producers hire you to write a script, you'll only have about 1 week to write the treatment, and then maybe only 2 weeks to write the script. So you need to work quickly. Number 5, and action. I was very glad to hear that there are some buyers out there that are open to Christmas movies with a bit of action. Buyers such as BET and Ion are just a few. And we all know Christmas movies tend to be a bit formulaic, so you need to make your story fresh. Maybe that means adding a bit of action. Number 6, production logistics. Make sure your secondary characters don't end up in a few scenes in several locations. Try to keep their locations to a minimum and use more interiors and day shoots. Well, that's the show. Thank you for listening. To show your support, please give us a 5-star rating on Apple or wherever you get your podcasts, and sign up to be notified of our launch of our membership website at christmasmoviescreenwriter.com. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you on the next Christmas Movie Screenwriter podcast. Bye.